Welcome to Caternet's Return Ready podcast. I'm James Waldron and I'm joined once again by Neil Shale, our commercial director. Say hi, Neil.
Hi, James. Good to speak again.
This episode this week focuses on price and is the second of the four pillars that food businesses need to reevaluate as they relaunch their kitchen operations post COVID-19. If you're managing a hospitality venue, we've put together a Return Ready hub packed with original research and checklists to ensure you're asking the right questions and genuinely gain control of product, price, place, and people. You can find our free resources at caternet.co.uk and just click on COVID-19 help. Stick with us and we'll tell you how you can get a free dive into your performance gaps to put your hospitality business back in the best possible position. Neil, last time we asked how often do you review your supplier relationships, and we looked at ingredients and service level agreements. But this time we're asking, where are your hidden costs under your relaunch? So we're picturing a scenario where chefs and procurement managers, they've done their due diligence, they've researched and signed with the appropriate mix of suppliers. But looking at the price checklist, there's two important points you felt jumped out at you.
Yeah, 100%. I thought the how to check prices are up to date and remain competitive, really key. And also, how do you control substitute products to eliminate surprises? I thought was the other one that really stuck out to me, really, as a key element for this.
So it all comes down to data and control of data, such as live prices. So keeping those prices up to date, knowing that you're competitive and eliminating those surprises. So you need a system that really answers, am I paying too much for ingredients?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's even more important now, given the fact that margins have always been so tight in this industry, but even more so now in a post-COVID-19 world. I always remember the scenarios that I've seen with different customers where we had a university client that was purchasing lots of wraps for their deli bars for their students, and using our software, they're able to see different prices for the same types of wraps. And we did an experiment with to show that they could save between £5,000 and £6,000 a year in terms of switching their supply of wraps from one supplier to another supplier just with one product out of a list of 20,000 products they were purchasing. So immediately they're making a great saving. There's also other examples we've seen in the past as well with a private school, and the catering manager there noticed that by taking Nutella off the menu, so the students can have that through for nut allergies, basically, as the allergen laws were changing, and changed it to a chocolate spread without nuts, that saved her £3,000 a year just by not purchasing that any longer. And again, the reporting was there from the system to be able to show that and be able to prove that to her superiors.
So what you're saying is all of this information was hidden away on paper files, but it was really when they got control of that data, these hidden costs started to appear.
Absolutely, and that's probably the most criminal thing about this, James, is that this data is available for people to see, and it, like you say, it's normally hidden in lever arch files in a drawer on an invoice. But to have it collated for you to actually make that point for you and help you ascertain what you need to do next is key with this. And another important part we found with people have found with systems as well is recipe remapping. We found this to be really beneficial and powerful for chefs, particularly to say, I want to change product A to product B, and what actually would that look like in terms of a costing now of my recipe, and what margin does that now give me, and where does that take my costing levels to be now?
You were telling me an example of a client that couldn't acquire red onions anymore and change them to Spanish onions, and what that meant for plate costs.
Absolutely, and again, that's a great example to use there, where it's used in a lot of different ingredients, even down to, like, the basic salt and pepper. Just change that from one supplier to another supplier, or changing the product slightly and deviating it to see if that is actually making a massive difference to your bottom line.
It's when you were talking about that onions example, and we were talking before we started with this, and don't shoot me for using such a well-known story, but it goes back to American Airlines in the 1980s. And how they save $40,000 a year by removing a single olive from each first class onboard salad. Even back then, without the software and the systems, it just shows you how much you need to get a grip on your data to really tell you those stories that you need with cost control. Before lockdown, we'd seen a rise in central production kitchens across all manner of food businesses, and they produce items such as gravies, sauces, and prepared vegetables. They're not appropriate for everyone, but even small restaurant and pub groups have proven that they can be a key ingredient in surviving increasing rents and business rates. So, Neil, we know some operators move to central production to control brand consistency and to improve their buying power as well. You've picked up on a few more cost control points around central production kitchens.
Yeah, that's right, James. We've seen the rise of central production kitchens, or CPUs, central production units, now for quite some time. And I think in a post-COVID-19 world, that's only going to really increase even further. People I've been speaking to are looking at these even more so now to sort of, again, continue that brand consistency, keep costings low there with deliveries coming into a central point, building their marinades and their production that they're looking to do to send out to their different restaurants to then sell. And I think in this new world that we're looking at now, that where you're trying to reduce the amount of staff in place and social distancing aspects that's going to be needed in kitchens, to do this at a central production unit and then transport this produce out to people to use in their restaurants, I think will be even more popular. We've been working with clients that operate these models for quite some time. We've just recently started to work with another one who produces food in their central production unit and actually delivers this as a mailed order service, which again has weathered that COVID-19 storm where people are looking for a nice restaurant experience but delivered to their door. I only see that really, really increasing. Some of my favourites on the list, reducing the wage and waste pressures, which you've just alluded to there with that central production units, and also the on-site teams focusing on the core offer. I think we mentioned this in the last podcast, talking about simplified menus, less steps involved, and keeping staff on set rota patterns. I mean, they're talking about schools now going into their bubbles. And I think that's very much the same within the hospitality sector. You're going to have staff in rota bubbles to keep them connected to themselves and to try to mitigate the amount of infection and transmission. I think that's going to be more and more commonplace.
We were talking about one of the nice things that will come from this is fighting skill shortages. But obviously, if you have those skill shortages amongst a large estate, say, or even just a small pub chain, to have everyone in that one kitchen, should you have to suddenly, unfortunately, rely on things like agency staff, use that as a way to upskill your entire fleet of chefs.
Absolutely. I think there's a great opportunity there for knowledge sharing and upskilling of different staff, because like you say, you're working in a very set way going forward. And I think as well, people are desperate to return back to their kitchens now. Chefs I've spoken to have been furloughed for perhaps 3 months now, and they're desperate to get back into the thick of the action. And I think that they're really keen just to pick up new skills with the obvious changes that are going to be needed to kitchens and the actual restaurant scene and hotels and bars.
So for central production kitchens, there's also the consideration of reducing risk around trialing new concepts. So if a group of venues is looking to shift further, say, towards delivery and collection, or they've changed suppliers, as we discussed last time, it's simply less challenging to train one group of chefs in prep, storage, and handling. The risk, of course, and this takes us back to price that we're talking about this week. The risk, of course, is that they don't generate any revenue themselves. So you need to continually review your central production kitchen for cost benefit analysis. With all that said, our question to the sector to go away and think about this week is, what are your new cost projections now you've revised your budgets? Well, we can help. For a limited time, Caternet is offering you a free Caternet Analytics profit and loss report using your data. If you're based in the UK, you can contact us for a dive into your performance gaps. Our team has many decades of operations experience between them, so we'll see how we can help. Go to caternet.co.uk and click on COVID-19 help. Whilst you're there, check out our blog. We cover everything from fixed price menus to shrinkage problems, particularly in premium restaurants, and purchasing fair trade if that's important to you and your guests. That's caternet.co.uk and click on COVID-19 help. Next time we discuss place. Thanks, Neil.
Pleasure, James. Always good to speak.
And thanks everyone for listening.